I'm Charlie Brooker, and welcome to So Wrong It's Right, the panel show that, if it were heat-resistant tile, would be flapping about on the nose cone of the space shuttle. Unpleasant, actually, isn't it? Tonight we'll be discussing despair, blame, self-loathing, misery and other aspects of my weekend. And then we'll get on with the programme. There's a thin line between success and failure. It's called Hadrian's Wall. Fittingly, for a show that celebrates life's most spectacular disappointments, three of them are sitting beside me in the form of the indomitable Lee Mack, the indefatigable Sarah Millican, and the in-betweeners writer Ian Morris. The first round is called Wrong Time, Wrong Place. I'll be asking my guests to confess to an embarrassing story so we can all point and chortle at what appalling human mistakes they are. And I'll award a point for the worst answer. This week we're looking for workplace mishaps. We all make mistakes in the workplace, but only at Channel 5 is that company policy. Not every job is a barrel of laughs, but there's little things you can do to keep your spirits up. When I had a desk job, I put this funny little sign on my monitor to break the ice, start conversations, raise a smile of solidarity here and there, although it turns out some people find the words white power offensive. They do say you should dress for the job you want, not the one you've got, and that's why I'm wearing crotchless pants. Actually really makes sense. Anyway, I'm going to ask you all for the worst workplace mishap, and the worst answer, as decided by me, is going to get a point. I'll start with you, Sarah. What is the worst thing you've ever done at work?
I'm quite boring and sensible, so I've not really done many bad things at work, because I always wanted to make sure that I could get a reference in case I needed to go back. Even when I left to do stand-up, I thought, you never know, it might not work out, I might have to go back to the job centre where I worked. But when I worked at the cinema, Titanic came out, and we used to stand outside of the screens and wait for the massive, big, butch blokes to come out crying and just point and laugh at them.
Did you do that with, I don't know, showing us Schindler's List? Well, you could have done. What did you have to do at the cinema?
Oh, I was in charge of the popcorn area. Shut up, you're all jealous. We used to chip...
popcorn area?
Just very messy eaters. It just starts going everywhere.
You've never worked in a popcorn area, have you?
I'm pleased to say I haven't, no.
You've never chipped cheese off the walls for 2 hours like I have.
Cheese?
Yeah, well, because they do, like, cheese with the nachos, and cheese should never come in a pump, should it? And it did used to spray up the walls, and we used to have to chip it off. So, you've never lived till you've done that.
This sounds worse than the trenches. It's disgusting. So you're saying that the worst thing you've done is just to point and laugh at some people?
Yeah, I'm nice, though. You see, it's not something you'd understand, is it?
It can be very nice.
Lee, I imagine you've done some terrible things in the workplace in your time. What's the worst one?
I've done things you don't want to think about, Charlie. The worst thing I've ever done at work is probably just embarrassing. When I was 16, I left school. I decided I wanted to be a jockey. So that's not it, but that is true. And I went to work at the local stables that had red rum, because I'm from up north, Southport, and at this point he'd retired. He was actually 21, which, for those of you that don't know, that's very old for a northerner. I was sat. All the proper jockeys went out, and I'd only been there for like 24 hours, my first day at work, and I got very excited, and I went into Red Rum's stable, and I jumped on his back whilst he was eating his hay, and I rode the finish of the 1977 Grand National with commentary. So I basically was on his back going, and he's come to the last one, he's only got 2 furlongs. It's Lee McKillop, which is my real name. On Red Rum. I didn't say that, obviously, because I knew that. That would have been mental if Red Rum had gone, I thought you were Lee Mack. No, it's Lee McKillop. Yeah, carry on. And then I rode the finish and said, it's hats off, a tremendous finish, one like you've never heard at Liverpool. And that's when someone came in and caught me. And Red Rum was just fat and eating his hay. You're not seeing this at home, but I'm miming a fat horse eating hay. Think, I don't know, Anne Widdecombe having Weetabix. That was generally the look the horse gave me. I bet she could eat 7.
What was the reaction of you? Well,
he went... the man who caught me.
Yes.
He said, "What are you doing?" And I went, "I'm riding the finish to the 1977 Grand National." He went, "Get off." All right. And I just sort of got off, and they always looked around like I was an idiot, and I went away very sheepish.
Do you think, I mean, did that happen to Red Rum a lot, I would imagine?
By me? I learned from my mistakes, Charlie. I'm not an idiot.
Ian.
Hello.
Ian Morris. What's the worst thing you've ever done at work?
Well, I used to work at a sort of gym and a tennis club, doing nothing athletic. I was a receptionist, and I used to book tennis courts. And we used to have to get in quite early in the morning, so like sort of shift work. And one day I was chatting to one of the female managers there. It was very nice. And someone was off work, and I said that the best way to call a sickie, I think, is always to say you've got diarrhoea, because no one really wants to know. No one wants to ask the specifics. They just think, yeah, diarrhoea, fine, put it down. Anyway, that night I went out and got very drunk. Very, very drunk. And when I get a hangover, they're catastrophically bad. They kind of turn into migraines, and I start vomiting and stuff. The next morning, I'm doing the early shift, 6:15, the phone rings. It's the same manager, and they say to me, "Where are you?" And I said, "I'm sick." And then she went, "What's wrong with you?" And there was a beat, and I went, "Diarrhoea." And she went, "Well, I know, because of our conversation yesterday, you haven't got diarrhoea, so you better come in." So I came in, and this was, you know, really quite a posh tennis club. Like, I basically spent the day with a bin next to me, going, "Yeah, I'll get you a quart. I'll get you a quart for 7 o'clock. Okay, yeah, do you want that as a..." And that's pretty much that until I got sacked.
That's my best excuse for I was always late. I used to work in a shop, and I was 3/4 of an hour late almost every day. And the best excuse I ever came up with was that I had soiled myself on the tube. Because no one, like you say, no one questions. No one...
Yeah. What shop did you work in, Charlie Brooker?
It was a video games shop.
Of course it was.
One of the few shops you can work in if you've soiled yourself.
Could you meet a lot of girls at the video shop, is it?
Video game shop? No.
Video game shop, that's what I mean, yeah, no.
No, of course not.
No, I'm not saying that you would have done, I'm just interested if you did or not.
If you wanted to meet sort of pubescent boys, it was probably quite good.
Did you do the thing that people do in video shops where you sort of show off to the pubescent boys about, well, that's a rubbish game, or I've finished this?
Yeah, no, you could swear, you could smoke. You could smoke behind the counter. You were encouraged to be rude to people.
So that's where it started, Charlie. That's where you got your shtick.
That's it. I haven't, you know, you soiled yourself. I haven't washed since Manic Miner. I'm not even...
I was on the worst mishap at work, and I'm going to give Lee a point, because he's involved a real horse. Our next round is called Do Your Worst, in which my guests will be stretching their minds over their knees in an attempt to come up with the worst idea they can. This week, I've asked them to pitch me a terrible idea for a new West End musical. For us, it's a frivolous game. For Andrew Lloyd Webber, it's a career. I would go to more musicals, but I don't like the current productions in the West End, or the theatres, or the people who go to musicals, or musicals. Lee, Matt, what's your idea for a terrible musical?
Well, I also hate musicals. The only thing I did watch once was Oliver, and I thought, for a kid that's supposed to be so hungry and emaciated, he's doing an awful lot of singing and dancing. OK, and this is my pitch to you, Charlie. It's a musical, right, set in the future. The year is 2302, where originality and individualism is shunned. Citizens are cloned. All music is manufactured by a company called Global Soft, but there's a lone dreamer who wants to get back the spirit of rock and roll and search for the holy axe and the lost riff, and his name is Galileo. First, he must escape the clutches of the killer queen, which he does, and do you know why? Because this man isn't just any old dreamer. This man is the reincarnation of Freddie Mercury. And the whole thing is set to the soundtrack of classic Queen songs. I challenge the rest of the panel and you, Charlie Brooker, to think of a worse idea for a musical than that.
What are you going to call it?
Oh, I don't know. We will annoy you.
I haven't seen this.
I know you haven't seen it because I've just invented it. I've not seen it.
Is that really the plot?
Yeah.
Well, I haven't seen it, but I looked it up. Apparently, that is the plot to "We Will Rock You," the Queen musical.
We Will Rock You. basically.
That's
It's what
my
you've
pitch.
come up with there. Sarah, pitch me a bad musical.
Well, I really like musicals, surprise. And I went to see one recently that was so good that during the big musical numbers I nearly cried.
I was on with the worst mishap at work, and I'm going to give Lee a point because he's involved a real horse. Our next round is called...
It was so good. Anyway, and they still sell Maltesers in boxes in the West End, that's ace. Anyway, it's important. My idea for a musical is a more realistic version of Billy Elliot. Because my dad worked down the pit, I'm such a cliché, and we went through the miners' strike and it wasn't anything like that. Oh no, we'll have to burn my piano. You wouldn't have had a piano. And it's called Bleeding Heels, and that's based around the story of me waking up age 9 with heels that had exploded because my shoes were too tight, but I didn't have the heart to tell my mum and dad because they couldn't afford any new ones. Thanks. And I did get to wear wellies all summer, though. That was ace. I didn't have any friends, so it didn't matter. And Bleeding Heels will be to the tune of Bleeding Love by Leona Lewis. So that's a brilliant song.
They keep bleeding.
Keep bleeding.
My bleeding heels.
Bleeding heels. Sounds like swearing, but it's not. And, yeah, when you've lived through something like that, and because I haven't seen the musical, because I wouldn't, Priscilla's ace, though, shut up. And but I did see the film, and they had neon lights in the back lane saying "Merry Christmas," and we barely had lights on in the house. And I'm not like, oh, you know, get the violins out, but you know, you've got to make it realistic.
You can't, do you watch Chitty Chitty Bang Bang and go, but you can't fly in a car? I didn't know the whole point that it's not realistic.
Well, I've got my dad's brain, like, in a jar. No. My dad's an engineer, was an engineer, and whenever we watched
He was a miner a minute ago.
He wasn't a miner. I said he worked down the pit. He was a shift charge engineer, I'll have you know. And...
You make it sound so glamorous.
Better than being a miner, shut your face.
What's wrong with being a miner?
It's not as good, and... it's not as skilled. My dad, whenever we watch, like...
This is a classic northern argument. This is so good. My dad's a miner. Well, my dad's an engineer in a mine. My Auntie Jean was a pit pony. Beat that.
She just looked like one, love.
Audience, I'm not offended by my fictional Aunt Jean. She doesn't exist, and she's never met her.
Ian, give me an idea for it.
So I think I want people to come to this musical, so it's important that it's big. I'm pitching you, Charlie, Simon Cowell, the musical. The story is written by someone like Ben Elton, who seems like they'll do anything for money. The first half mainly focuses on his early musical career, so you get songs by Sunita, Sonia, Robson Jerome, the Power Rangers, and the WWF. Oh, yeah. So it keeps going, yeah, it's worldwide, yeah. It keeps going there because at the end of that, it closes off with Steve Brookstein. So you think, oh, the X Factor's coming up. And then you think, so, well, maybe I'll go back for the second half because it's going to get better, it's going to be the X Factor. But what it actually is it's the same dead-eyed, cynical, bland pop music as a cash dispenser, but this time it's sung by actors who are slightly more urban or gay. So basically, it's pop music as a cash dispenser, a way to make money.
Is Simon Cowell singing in
Yeah, he's singing. It's basically the story of a man's difficulty to achieve a flat top with centre parting, how high is too high on a man's trousers, and also the idea of perfecting the righteous turn around and shrug to an audience. They're the struggles that are going on in this. I think that people would like it, people would go to see it. It wouldn't be about Bleeding Heels, I'll give you that. I did actually come up with it myself. So whoever you want to win, you choose, but I'm just saying, you know...
I don't think that's the worst musical, because I think I'd go and see that.
I would get you there, and then you'd be hooked, and you'd think, oh, Sunita, Sonia, X Factor...
Those are not three things that are going to hook me into anything.
I've seen Sonia live.
Really?
Such a winner.
Does he... I mean, can you alter the story? Can he take his own life at the end?
Is he sexy in the musical? Because he's quite sexy normally? No.
You said that quite quietly, Sarah.
Yeah.
Is he?
Yeah. I want to go on because I want a little cuddle off Dermot, and then I want to be quite good, so he gives us that, Simon Cowell gives us that little wink that he does.
I think you are literally the only person watching the X Factor thinking, God, this is fit,
I'm really
isn't it?
not.
This is fit. Oh, this on a Saturday night.
What you could do though with Simon Cowell is you could slip your hand down his belt buckle like that and tickle his nipples.
When you put it like that, that's powerfully erotic. OK, to summarise, we've got... Lee, basically, you've just tried to sell me We Will Rock You. Sarah, you're saying a more realistic Billy Elliot, because you're still bitter about the miners' strike.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
You say that as if it's a small thing as well. Like, miners' strike you lived through and you couldn't afford lighting.
Like that Armenian massacre people go on about. Yeah. Real-life Billy Elliot, you're saying. So, and Ian, you're saying Simon Cowell, the musical.
Well, give it a bit more than that and it'll sound better.
Well, you know what I'm going to go for? I'm going to go for the real-life Billy Elliot, I think, because I think realism is important. Well done, Sarah. You got a point. This round is called This Putrid Modern Hell. It's a sort of hate rally against the 21st century's biggest little annoyances. I'll be asking each of my guests to nominate the thing they hate most about today. My favourite answer wins a point. Modern communications have been revolutionised by things like Twitter, which puts you on intimate terms with the stars. Fern Cotton. I now know so much about Fern Cotton, it's almost like she's a personal friend of mine I can't stand. Technology is amazing. My brand new mobile phone can take high-definition 5 million megapixel photographs of my trouser pocket and email them to the first 5 people in my address book without me even pressing a button or wanting it to. Ian Morris, what annoys you most about the modern world?
What annoys me most is the drive to give inanimate objects or products personality. So I sort of blame something like...
Are you talking about me?
Talking about you. Talking about your drive. No, I think things like you might buy a smoothie and it might say on the side, "Hi, I contain 9 crushed strawberries, a mashed banana, half a pressed apple, half a squeezed orange, 0 snooker cues, and a little bit of sugar." I think, yes, why are you talking to me in the first person? I don't understand. And I found the other day, genuinely said to me, "Please keep me cool." You think, keep you cool? I'm planning to drink you in 30 seconds. Why are we having a relationship? And it becomes so familiar that you think, I'm not this familiar with my friends. My friends don't talk to me like this. Why are you getting all chatty? And I think what happens, I think Innocent Smoothies started it. Their sort of smoothies had all these stuff on the side. But then, this is genuine, my washing powder is inviting me to go online and talk about the environment and what it does and stuff like that. You think, when would I do that? When am I going to go online and talk about my washing powder with my washing powder? Well, I've completed the whole rest of the internet. Is that the moment I think maybe I should do this? And I was thinking about it, and I thought maybe it's a middle-class thing. The middle classes, if I'm not, of course, squarely part of that, like to be reassured that our products are nice. So you don't buy a can of, like, super-strength lager. It doesn't say, "I will fight you," on the side. That's nice. Saying my super-strength lager, asking if I could spare me some change. Please don't urinate me and throw me at schoolgirls. It's my last piece of this. It's like, what annoys me is that I worry that it can't be good for schizophrenics, because in the old days it was just it was just the dog or the lamp that you had to worry about talking to you, asking you to murder people. Now everything you look at, the washing powder.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I find it very strange that they try and build a rapport with you when all you're trying to do... I mean, yeah, and you're going to rip their head off and pour their innards into a cup basically, and then drink them. You don't... That's no basis for any sort of relationship.
But how bored do you have to be reading the side of a smoothie?
Well, that's very harsh. Also, I think you'll find, Sarah, it's lonely, not bored. I had a thing that on a box I was reading, lonely, was, and it said, "Why not come and be part of the Jaffa Cake community?" And I thought... Well, he will. And I literally did. I was like, "Yeah, all right." There you go. And it was, do you know what? Wasn't that good.
Do you think there's arms manufacturers who are marketing like their new guns? It's a gunny oney shooty bag. Watch the man's head or burst a party what?
We call our cluster bombs clusters because they're clusters of fun.
And bomb.
And bomb, mainly and the bomb bit.
OK, Sarah.
My pet hate, I suppose, is Dawdlers. Now, I don't mean people who walk slowly, because there are people who walk slowly, either people who can't walk very well or old people. I don't have a problem with that. It's people who choose to walk slowly on pavements. I think there should be a fast lane on pavements. So not only have I highlighted the problem, I've also come up with a solution. So I should get a point. No. Because, like, when I was a kid, in order for me and my sister to do things quicker, my mum would do the music from the silent films shows. So we would be sort of... Yeah, when she would do like that. And that just automatically makes you kind of pick up your speed, whatever you're doing. But I always think that in their minds, these people who are walking really slowly are clearly listening to, like, Louis Armstrong, We Have All the Time. And I just want them to... because I only passed my driving test a couple of years ago, and I walk on busy pavements like I drive. So I'll check up on my shoulder and I'll pull out. And then I walk past the dawdlers and I pull back in again.
What overtaking people?
No, but just that they have to keep in. There's an inside lane. There's an inside lane.
Don't make the pavement more complicated than it has to be.
But you know, like, when you go out, like, for a sandwich, and everybody's out at lunchtime, isn't it really irritating when people walk really slowly? And especially, I mean, London's really bad because people just stop. Like,
people are irritating. Just people being everywhere.
Oh, so you just go out in the night for sandwiches?
Not for sandwiches.
I don't mean that. I don't have a problem with on the way to the shop.
Oh, I do. Because London's really bad because obviously there's a lot of tourists, so people just will walk along and then just stop in front of you. Am I the only one that finds that irritating? See?
What is the matter with you people?
See, it wasn't funny, but they agree.
People walking slowly?
Yes.
Down the... What are they basically... Are they texting? Is that
I
what they're
don't
doing?
care what they're doing.
Have you ever considered the possibility that everybody is walking at the normal speed and you're caffeined up freak? Perhaps going at an extra 25% than you should be doing.
Well, maybe...
Move out the way, move out the way, move out the way, move out the way. You're not a tourist, you're not even from round here in London.
I'm not a tourist, I work here sometimes.
What? I've never encountered... I can't... I'm shocked that this is a problem. Evidently, I don't walk around. And maybe I'm one of the dawdlers. Maybe that's what it is.
Maybe we've overtaken you.
Have you tried just shouting at them?
Well, I'm tempted to do that music just behind people, just to say...
It's very passive-aggressive.
It is, yeah. And then they'll just all of a sudden just start walking really quickly.
Yeah, but they'll get into all sorts of silent film accidents. They'll end up falling off blocks.
Buildings falling over.
Buildings fall down, but just the door will miss them.
Railway lines, wagon trapped.
Lee, what's your biggest modern annoyance?
Why? It's very simple and quick, and it's always annoyed me, right? The number one thing that separates us from the animals is the ability to go to the toilet in private. Right? And when you sit down in a cubicle and you look down and you see the feet of another man next door, it's disgusting. And the gap between the floor and the separating bit of wall is getting taller and taller as the years go on, and the doors in pubs are getting smaller for some reason, so people can pop their head over the top. It's getting to the point where it's like a beer match covering your... I have to sit there now. I'm so squeamish. I have to sit there when I'm sat on the toilet with my fingers in my ears, because looking down and seeing another man's underpants round his ankles and he's 3 inches... I've known it where you accidentally brush feet. It's horrible.
I know what you mean, because what you want is a soundproof booth in another universe.
Everything.
I think you need to start going to the toilet at home, don't you? It sounds like you're constantly out.
Yeah, do you look through the little hole as well? That's about midway up.
I do have a solution. I discovered that if you go in with, like, headphones, like listening to music really loud, you can just defecate like a cow. Like the 3 monkeys that sit there, see, it just like literally.
Yeah, but the problem is, Charlie, I'm reserved. It's the worry that he will hear me. So the only way that would work for me is if just before I start, I reach underneath and say, "Excuse me, I've got to go to this
Smith love in an elevator. Can you crank it up to 10?
And that's just going to make me sound odd, isn't it?
So I can relate to that. I can relate to the small gaps between toilet cubicles.
Big
so
gaps,
Lee,
Charlie, big gaps. That's my problem. The rule is, if you can see shoe, it's wrong.
Well, Ian, yours was products with personality, horrible, fake, chummy personalities on the cartons. Sarah, yours is painfully slow walkers, dawdlers on the pavement. And Lee, it's the large, gaping gaps between toilet cubicles. That sounds wrong.
Doesn't it?
Well, you know what? I think I need all the friends I can get, but I can't stomach modern products either. So,
Lovely.
Ian, that's a point to you.
Thank you.
OK. This is our last round, in which I'll be asking my guests a series of quick-fire questions. As always, the wrongest answer to each one wins a point. All right. What's the worst thing you can say to a new neighbour?
Can I borrow a hammer, some plastic bin liners and a shovel?
Are you a drummer as well?
I do have a drummer for a neighbour. It's really annoying. 5 years and they've got no better. It's really infuriating. I would say I think there's a point to Lee. What's the worst world record you could hold?
Britain's most prolific zoophiliac.
What about necrophile zoophiliac?
I think, in fact, this Britain's is good, though, 'cause you're not even the best one in the world.
The world's most forgetful man, because then he couldn't even boast about it.
I think on grounds of taste alone, that's a point to Sarah. What is the worst email subject line to pop up on your computer?
I think anything, you know, the ones that are clearly spam, but they try and be your friend. So they have like so it'll have like Sam, and then it'll have in the subject something really generic, like, hey, about that thing. There's always a moment where you go, I know a Sam. And I do things.
I once got hundreds of death threats after I wrote
Once?
an article. I wrote an article about George Bush when he was president. I got hundreds of death threats from Americans, and they're all saying things like, "I hope you die," you know, in the subject line. And then every so often you'd get one that would go, "I read what you wrote and I agreed with it," and you'd open it up and it would go, "Not really. I hope you die." Well, you know what? I'm going to give Sarah a point. Well, that noise means we've reached the end of the show, making Sarah this week's worst contestant. Well done, Sarah. You're officially so wrong, you're right. Thanks also to Ian and Lee. Good night.
So Wrong is Right was hosted by Charlie Brooker with Lee Mack, Sarah Millican and Ian Morris. The producer was Alan Evans, and it was a Zeppotron production for BBC Radio 4.